Hey, all right. Well, thank you very much for having me, everybody. I'm Adam Brault, I guess. There it is. You figured that out. Anyway, let's let's begin with a story, shall we? So, in a newsletter that our team sent out a few weeks ago, we shared a story from Jen Turner, who some of you may know, aka Jen Writes on Twitter, aka the best. Jen is awesome. And in the newsletter, Jen shared about a talk that she gave at JSConf 2014 about emotional intelligence and leadership and creating safe workplaces. And in that talk, she was also announcing the first iteration of this community publication that we were starting at the time called Leadershipy. I'm taking off my watch because it's rattling against the table. Anyway, so last week when she was reflecting on her talk from 3 years ago, she said this. She said, "The thing about this talk, though, is that I hate it now." Now, she said that obviously that is a common thing for people, like all of us, to do when we look back on our work, and that was part of it. But for her, it went beyond that. This is where personally it got a little hard for me. And this was a hard thing for her to write, very, very personal anyway. So she wrote, "The part that makes me cringy is watching me perform what I understood to be leadership at the time. When I look back at that almost four-year-old talk, I see a version of myself talking like Adam Brault, trying to lead like Adam Brault. While my friend Adam is an amazing person," he will hate this, it's true, "and an industry-revered leader," who's ridiculously over the top, "his leadership style is not my style, but I've only discovered this after spending a great deal of time emulating him and feeling incredibly hurt and alone in the process, and like a total imposter. Oh, excuse me while I go hide in the bed for a moment," because obviously that's a hard thing for me to read. I never wanted Jen to try to be me. I wanted her to be herself. And it definitely stung to read what Jen wrote in writing that. But for me, it was also really good for me and really healing, because the hard truth is that given the passage of time and the painfully hard-earned wisdom that I've gained since, I already knew that before reading what she wrote. I already knew that she was trying to be me rather than herself. What I've actually realized with the benefit of now years of hindsight is that at the time, I was so desperate for external validation of who I am that I unintentionally invalidated Jen, entirely unbeknownst to me. The act of leading has brought me repeatedly face to face with my own weaknesses and my own darkness. But knowing those has also made me more intimately familiar with my own strengths and values. And wasn't someone worth Jen's respect, she would have never tried to emulate me. And if I didn't continue to be worth that respect to her, she'd never write something like that. Especially not, she's part of our team and we're friends, and she wouldn't have written something like that if she didn't continue to respect me. Well, over the years, I've had quite a journey, which has caused me to cut all the way to my core. And that path has led me straight into a whole section of the woods that I had never dared to walk into before. 3 years ago, I went to a counselor, and her initial assessment was that I was using my team to get my emotional needs met. And that was not just painful to hear, it was absolutely excruciating. I actually walked out of that first counseling meeting and told a friend I wanted to kill myself as a result of what she told me, because it was so much that not how I thought of myself, not who I wanted to be. It was jarring. And I'm glad that I instead wrote a very long email to my counselor and continued the conversation with her. But for me, it was so hard because I poured my life into my team at Yet. I was really willing to do anything for them. I did whatever I could to support them professionally and personally. And I was a listening ear to many of them. And if there was ever something that I could give emotionally to one of them, I'd do it in a heartbeat. And unfortunately, I did all this while downplaying my own needs without even really understanding my own needs. And behind my overgenerous and seemingly selfless approach, inside I was empty and I was hurting and needing to be seen and felt as valuable. And then, when financial circumstances cornered us into layoffs, I was confronted full force by how empty that I was inside. I really had nothing left to give. And now some of the people who most helped fill me up in response were gone. And to give you a representative sample of the people who I had to lay off, Ben Mitchell was one of them. Ben is so awesome. I mean, any of you who know Ben, you just know he is an absolute light. He's one of the most vibrant, encouraging people you could possibly ever know. Losing him alone from the team would have been a blow, but there were a whole slew of people who were of the same ilk, who were just positive, powerful people, and they were some very close friends on the team. So at the conclusion of that, I was burned out in the most dramatic of ways. And it took me years to recover from it. And I'm doing much better now, but I'm honestly still recovering from it in some ways, to be very honest. Now, I want to make a connection that seems a little weird. It may be, so we're going to enter into a weird region of the talk. It may be weird to think, but burnout can actually be a lens through which we can better understand ourselves, and perhaps it can even help us find our true calling. There's a writer named Parker Palmer who has a book called Let Your Life Speak that I absolutely love, would highly recommend. And in it, he talks about how depression is often a friend who is trying to help us realize that we need to take care of ourselves, that we need to find the true solid ground beneath our feet and to embrace who we truly are rather than who we are trying to be. Burnout is really just a unique flavor of work-related depression and exhaustion. And it has a lot to teach us about ourselves if we listen. And the hard part is that many of us don't listen when we face it. We find a quick escape and move away from it, but we don't dig deep enough, hard enough to really ask, why are we feeling that way? Burnout comes from the loneliness of trying to be who we aren't, and the pain of believing that our value is found in living out the expectations of others. It makes sense that many of us and our peers would end up burned out in our careers. In a world where we've all been given a stage, it's easy to assume that means we must perform. But you are not valuable for what you do for others. You are valuable for who you are. I really believe that we can use burnout to better understand ourselves and what makes us unique. And I want to share some takeaways in turning burnout into a powerful tool for discovering our true selves. The first is trust your crust, which comes from my colleague Luke Carey's. He said this many years ago, and it's an idea that we've kept around on our team for a long time. But obviously, frust is short for frustration. And many of us in our work or in our lives feel frustration, and that frustration can teach us something. A lot of times we try and find excuses for that frustration, or we push through the frustration, or we ignore it, or we beat ourselves up about it, or we act out from it. But the frustrations that we feel, the pain that we feel, can really be a path to truth. And I really believe that burnout can show you who you are, which is actually a very important thing for us to know. The fact is that we can put ourselves in positions that we learn a lot about ourselves just by what doesn't work for us at all. And many of us, I'm sure in this room, have had careers or been in roles that we thought we really wanted, that other people just might have looked at us and thought, wow, that's a great role, or that's a great job, or That's a cool thing that you get to do. But we may have ultimately found out that that wasn't a fit for us at all. And so paying attention to the things about what it is that we're in, knowing who we are can really help. It's not just about narrowing things down. There's some clear ways that we can, when we push up against something, that we can feel, wow, maybe I'm very different from what this is asking from me. One of the most important things that I would highly recommend, and I frankly would recommend this to just about every single person, is to be willing to go under the microscope. Now, there's a picture of a telescope, so just, I like the picture. It's just ridiculous. But counseling is extremely valuable. Mental health therapy, I can't recommend it enough. I recommend it often to many people, and have experienced its benefits in my life, undoubtedly. One day I was realizing what it is about effective. I've been to several different counselors, and frankly, it wasn't until the counselor that I went to, that I've been going to now for about 3 years, that I found one that really worked for me. And what I realized one day is that every time I would describe something, a lot of people think about counseling and they go, oh, you go to this person, you talk about it, and then you feel better. And it's like, well, actually, many times I feel worse. And to me, I had this realization one day. I don't know if any of you have ever gone and gotten massage therapy before, but I have a back that tends to get pretty intense knots in it from time to time, and so I don't do it as often as I should, but at least probably once a year I'll be so badly just bound up that I've got to go get it worked out. And so when you go to a massage therapy, when you go to a massage therapist, they are going to not skirt around the places where it hurts. They're going to go right at the places where it hurts and usually apply a lot of pressure. And they focus on the same spots where the pain is. They work out those knots and they release the toxin that's in there. They unbind the muscles that are there, and and you walk away a lot of times if you've gone to a massage therapist that's really working in deep tissue. It certainly doesn't feel good at the time, and it may feel better to have that relief, but there's a little bit of soreness that's there for sure. And to me, really good counseling has been that way. It's not been something where I've gone in and just, oh, good, I feel better now. It's been every time I've found something that I expressed that bothered me or that I was struggling with, I found my counselor pushing harder on that, and going through the process of working on what is at the root underneath that pain. And what is it that I need to let go of, or what is it that I need to change? So I would highly recommend that. And I think burnout can be, a tool through which we can understand ourselves. And it's good to have someone who can look at us from an external, objective perspective, and that direction. Learn who you are and focus on that. We are, each of us, unique. Everyone's heard that so many times. That it is the most cliche thing anyone could ever say, and unnecessary seeming for me to say it in this talk, unnecessary for me to say it ever to myself, given that it's a fundamental of how I believed that I lived my life. But I really didn't. Many of the things that I prioritized in my life were based on other people's expectations. It didn't matter how many times I said that I wanted to be authentically myself, that I wanted to be who I was uniquely. Still, when it came down to some of the most significant ways that I chose how I made my decisions and how I oriented myself, it was around what I thought others expected of me, and what they would respect me for. And then learn what you need and ask for it. I think that's one of the hardest things that any of us can do, is to really understand ourselves well enough to know that we have needs. We have things that we need from others, that we really can't do this life by ourselves. And being willing to ask for it from our coworkers, from colleagues, from friends, from family. That's a significant step for all of us. Now, the last piece as a takeaway is sometimes you need to quit. Now, I want to be really clear that I think quitting is actually the last thing we should do, not because quitting should be a last resort, but because we need to ask ourselves why we want to quit before we do, so that we don't find ourselves back in the same place the next time. So when you see when you see yourself or you feel yourself have that tendency to just want to quit, a lot of times you need to do the work of what is at the root of this that's driving that feeling. I know a lot of people who have had so many different jobs that I don't think that they've really necessarily given themselves the reflection to be able to understand why is it that they needed to move on to another position. And a lot of them, they've found other ways to get to know themselves. But I think it's in an era when, from a software developer's perspective, it's very easy in many cases to find another position. Now, I say that from a position of privilege, and I certainly know that there are many of you who are probably looking to break your way into this industry. But certainly, I think we can all understand and respect that this industry is very different on a whole than most others, to where once someone's established, the ability to just say, "No, I don't want to do this anymore," move on. There's a level of demand that is unlike many other fields, and so that can sometimes make it very easy just to quit and move on. And so I think it is important to ask those questions of ourselves and use those feelings to really get deep in there. But when you see that you can't get what you need in order to be at your best, or you can't be who you are where you are, quitting can absolutely be the right answer. And quitting may mean a change of career, it may mean a change of company, a change of role within the company, a change of life circumstances, a change of relationships, or a change of just about anything. I really used to actually think there was some great virtue in never quitting anything. You can't fail if you don't quit, I would often say, with all of the earnestness of potato salad. And that's probably true for a lot of things. It's a good notion and a useful one. You can't fail if you don't quit. Seriously, I mean that. That's a good thought. If you like that particular thought, you can keep it and you can just quit listening right here. And you'll have followed this random internet person's advice twice. Here's a medal. But the fact is that nothing lasts forever. All of us that are anxious about wanting things to last, we're in denial. Atrophy is the default state of life, and good things don't last. Sorry, newsflash. But you know what? There's not a finite supply of good things that we will run out of if we don't hold on for dear life to good things. The thing about life is that it's actually one hell of a lot freer than we give it credit for. And at the end of the day, you don't have to do the things you don't want to do. And not just at the end of the day, that's true at the start of the day, at the middle of the day, and at toothbrushing time. You know what? No one will show up on your deathbed and congratulate you for not quitting things you spent most of your life wanting to quit. You probably won't even get an emoji mail, so better grab that. So yeah, you quit a thing you didn't want to do. What are they going to do? Take away your birthday? And you're going to have to get honest about what is it that keeps you pressing forward on something that just might need to die. There might be something that you're continuing to do that you really do just need to let go. And the thing that might need to die might actually just be your ego. I like how Parker Palmer puts it, to quote him again. Leaders who participate in this denial often demand that the people around them keep resuscitating things that are no longer alive. Projects and programs that should have been unplugged long ago are kept on life support to accommodate the insecurities of a leader who does not want anything to die on his or her watch. This is true, by the way, for open source projects too. You know what? The one thing I can say is going through burnout has ultimately made me a much better leader. Because eventually I realized that I didn't need to do everyone the favor of doing a half-assed job of holding up the world. in the spirit of Parker Palmer's insight about the connection between depression and leadership, one of the first projects that we are doing with this initiative we're calling Leadershipy is a thing we're calling Call of the Wildlife, which is an online experience about pursuing your gifts without being drowned by the needs of the world. It uses story and music and reflection to take us on a journey in pursuit of our own uniqueness. We made it to help our friends deal with the pain of burnout and the pressure of modern creative life. It's based on thoughts that my partner Sarah Bray and I have had that have come from our own experiences as designers, developers, entrepreneurs, and people of the internet. That ultimately, it's come from our experiences recovering from burnout and doing so with help from mentors and mental health professionals and inspiring books and other resources. It's the most personal project that I've ever worked on. I'm grateful to the scores of people on our team and our extended community that are part of it, including some longtime collaborators like amazing musician, cellist named Alana Henderson, and a guy named Ben Mitchell also. So we released the first version of it this summer as part of this onboarding experience for this community that we built for And Yet. But we were surprised by the number of people when we released it who told us that it gave them peace and clarity with regard to their career. So we're going to be sharing an updated version of the Call of the Wildling in late December, probably actually next week-ish. And we're hoping to do it in time for folks' holiday breaks, because we know that can be a difficult time for a lot of people, but it's also a perfect time to recover and reflect and to think about some of the questions that we put in this. We've put a ton of time and talent and energy into producing everything that's gone into it thus far. We thought about charging for it, but we want to make it available to everyone for free. So we hope that it would help you. If burnout is something that you've struggled with, we hope it helps you. And if you know someone that might need it, we hope you would share with them. To close here, I want to share a video of my And Yet colleague, the awesome Lynn Fisher, aka Lynn and Tonic on Twitter. So Lynn's a developer and designer. She's just a truly brilliant one on both counts. Lynn is amazing. I mean, Lynn is in a category entirely of her own. She's really one of the most amazing creative people that I've ever met. And I've had the privilege of working with her for quite a few years now. You may have seen some of her creations, like she has an amazing single div CSS illustration project. I wish I would have taken some screenshots. There's some screenshots actually in this video, but you need to check out that site if you haven't seen it. It's the single div illustrations. The level of detail that she's put into them and the number of them, it's unreal. Then she's got other things like airport codes and Hollywood Gap that talks about the age gap between various romantic partners in movies. Anyway, she's got a bunch of side projects. Anyway, Lynn had her own experience with burnout this year, and she shares it in this video, and I just want to share that. So, Ben, do you want to play that video?
Yep.
I didn't know what to do. I wasn't feeling passion to work on my side projects, and that terrified me. I thought that maybe I needed to find a new career or look for that inspiration elsewhere.
There's so much pressure in a modern creative career. Most of us will experience burnout at least once.
Every day when I'd sit down at the keyboard, I would feel just this sense of dread. Working on the web and on these projects it was a strain. And so when I'd close my computer at the end of the day, I was happy. So maybe think that the joy that I would experience in life would be separate from my career.
We started asking, how do we free people from burnout? Could we actually use it as a tool to better understand ourselves?
What I really needed in my work and to feel inspired and creative was more freedom, and the freedom to explore and to discover things in a less constrained way. So I was able to hand off some of my work to a teammate, and so I could have a little bit more freedom in my work, and it was amazing. Like that night, I went home and worked on my portfolio. I had so many ideas. I stayed up late, and it was just such validation that a simple change is what I needed, and the freedom to be creative and to discover are what I really needed to feel energized in my work. If you're experiencing burnout or similar feelings, I'd recommend that you try to understand what you specifically need in your team and in your environment and your work to feel like your best self. In our careers, we're often living to fulfill other people's expectations or to fulfill the role that we've been put in, but sometimes you don't fit into a specific role or a box, and that's okay.
The Call of the Wildling is an online experience about pursuing your gifts without being drowned by the needs of the world. It uses story and music and reflection to take us on a journey in pursuit of our own uniqueness.
Woo!
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Adam.
Yeah, great.
Whew. That was awesome, Adam. Thank you for inspiring us, and thank you for, thank you for caring.
Yeah, thanks for being here, bud.
Yeah, appreciate it.
We're glad. Thanks for having me. Thanks for being there, man.
Thanks for being here, Adam. Right on. Well, I'm really looking forward to working on this more with you, and thank you for sharing everything with everybody. Does anybody have any questions? How has your leadership style changed since learning this about yourself?
I really think that one, where did I put it? Like, that's totally it. I really felt like I needed to be there for everyone all the time. I really just I put more weight on, like, what do I actually need and how am I doing right now and what do I have to give, and just know that, like, there's a great line in another Parker Palmer book where he says, community means trusting that someone else will be there if we're not. And, I think that a lot of times, like, because I started the company, because I hired everyone personally that worked at the team, on our team, and all of them were people that I really cared about dearly. I felt a high degree of responsibility. And also the other thing that went into that is, like, I had a really hostile work environment that I came from. And so I felt like I felt like I needed to make sure that their work experience was high quality. And I cared so much about that and was so worried about that I would do whatever I could, even if I didn't have anything to give. And ultimately what I found out is that other people on the team will step up and fill those needs, that other people on the team care, that there's other people that will, it wasn't really about the work, it was the emotional work. It was that I really was gonna be there personally, emotionally, for anybody that needed it for whatever they were doing, however they, like, whatever. And I can't do that. It's not possible to do that for literally everyone, not all the time. And so, I've just kind of let that be more of a shared team responsibility, and trusted that the team can do it, and they have, and it's been awesome.